Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are Uplifting Positive Stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Happy Wednesday to all of you day of listeners.
Yeah.
Otherwise, happy whatever day it is that you listen to us.
Yes.
I'd be curious to know when people are listening to this podcast. Are you
Yeah.
a morning person with your
On your way to
breakfast
work,
or on your way to
while
work?
you do dishes. I feel like I always am listening to podcasts while I do dishes or cook or whatever.
Yeah, that's a pretty
Those are
common
kind of
one
my
for me.
common ones. Yeah. But we got some good stories lined up for today. Today's episode is all about expecting nothing in returns. These are stories where people very clearly were not doing it for clout or to have someone thank them. They were just doing it purely just to help somebody out or to be kind. And that's a really good rationale or reason to do something, is doing it and expecting nothing back. Today we're going to jump right in. This first one comes from the subreddit Ask Reddit, and the question was, what is the nicest thing you've ever done that nobody knows about? And there were 2.8 thousand comments on this post, which is crazy.
Okay,
So
that's a lot.
yeah, here's one of the
So
first
am I
ones that I saw.
expecting 2.8 thousand answers we're going to go through here?
No, because I filter them out and I find only the best ones.
Oh.
There are a lot of
that
good
weren't
ones.
positives in there?
There were some jokesters for sure.
Jokesters.
There were some jokesters.
Get out of here.
People that are like, this question is paradoxical because if I tell you, then you'll know about it. And I was like, that's fair, I guess. But
Listen, this is a situation where technically you're not wrong, but you are wrong.
we want to hear these stories. All right, so we're going to dive right in. Here's the first one I saw that I really liked. It says, when I got my settlement check for getting my finger cut off at work, I kept $2,000 and put the rest in the bank. That night after dinner and drinks, I was coming home and saw a homeless man, aged 25-30, that I've seen several times before, posted up against a wall near the intersection shivering in the cold. Since there were 3 hotels at that intersection, I stopped, rented a room for a week on my debit card, then took the key out of the envelope, replaced it with $1,700, and walked over to the gentleman to hand him the key and the cash. I saw him a month or so later working at a gas station, clean, shaved, and nice hair. I'm not sure if he recognized me, but I'm glad because I recognized him, and he appeared to be happy and doing well, which said enough. I haven't seen him in several years, but I like to think he's back on his feet, maybe with a family, a house, whatever really, but just doing well.
Dang.
Yeah. To which someone commented, I just thought this was interesting. Someone said, to give that much money is amazing. I don't think that I would be able to do it. And then they responded back with, OP did, truthfully, I thought about that for a while. I started to worry about him blowing it on drugs or alcohol, and I figured I tried. When I saw him, though, my eyes teared up because I was so proud of somebody I didn't even know. To this day, I think he did more for me than I did for him. And then the original question person said, drugs and alcohol is always the excuse I give myself for not doing more.
Yeah.
And it's very true. And there was a lot of posts about, giving money to the homeless and stuff, and there were some people in these comments that were like, you should never give cash because they might spend it on drugs and alcohol and stuff. And it's like, yes, to be fair, that could be the case for sure. I know there was a story my grandpa saw someone outside the grocery store with a sign asking for money, and he gave them, I think it was a lot of money. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a lot. And he later saw them come out with a bunch of cigarettes and alcohol. And he was really upset because he was like, I gave you money because you seemed like you needed food, not that.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, yeah, that can definitely happen. There are other ways of giving that you can still help the homeless, like getting them food, getting them a blanket, getting them a gift card. There's a lot of different ways of giving.
Or part of the story was a hotel room.
Getting a hotel room. There are a lot of ways, because no matter what, even if they are going to spend cash on drugs or alcohol, if they are dependent on those substances, they are still in a bad place. Mm-hmm. And they're still most likely spending money not on self-care, but on those things. So if there's a way to give in a way that is not going to perpetuate the problem, I think that's a good way to start.
Yeah, I just don't feel like that should be an excuse to never give.
Right. And
to
that's
never help out.
That's why I thought that comment was really interesting, was drugs and alcohol is always the excuse I give myself for not helping. And it's like, that's so true, I think. And it's really interesting to think about it like that. But I think that, OP also saying, I thought about that for a while, and I figured, well, at the very least I tried. And in this situation, look at what good it did. Sometimes people really do just need that second chance, that boost to get to where they need to get. Someone caring enough to help them out. And so I just thought this was a great example. And like with it fitting this theme of not expecting anything. He was like, well, they might have gone and spent it all on drugs and alcohol, and I just wasted my money, But what if? Right. What if it did help them? And in this case, he got that validation. He didn't plan to get that validation, but through a series of events, they ended up at the same place, and he saw that this person turned their life around. So, yeah, I just thought this story was really cool in that way.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to gloss over the fact that the story starts out with him. He lost part of his finger.
Yeah, that's scary. Must be working in some sort of trade.
Got that money then from reimbursement for losing his finger, work compensation.
Yeah.
And then just give it away. Right. More or less.
That's $1,700. That's a lot of money. So, yeah.
Well, the hotel probably wasn't cheap either.
True. Incredibly gracious. Incredibly kind. So.
I'm not going to lie. Like, losing my finger, my first thought wouldn't be, I'm going to give back now.
Right.
Unless I guess maybe if it was a near-death experience. I guess I don't know. It's losing a finger. I was not expecting that. And then, have that not be the thing that's talked about for a while in the story. Regardless of the story is, dude lost part of his finger, or girl. I guess I don't remember the story specified gender.
Yeah, but still, yeah, super, super crazy. From the same subreddit, here comes the next story. I've been lucky and have had the opportunity to do different things in my life that allowed me to meet people that I could support, no questions asked. But there's one thing that always sticks out to me above all the other things that would seem like a lot bigger deal on paper. I ran a summer-long day camp for kids in a neighborhood that's always labeled as troubled, violence-ridden, etc. You know the type. The media loves it. There was this one 8-year-old boy who drove me up the wall. Not a day would go by when he wouldn't steal or kick or punch or bite or be verbally abusive to myself, my team, and the other kids. Not a day went by where I didn't have to send him home early. But every morning, he was the first kid to arrive, sometimes showing up an hour early. So every morning, I would hug him, look him in the eyes, and say, I'm so glad you're here today. Let me tell you, most days, my emotions did not line up with what I was saying. I mean, this kid caused me so much grief. But every day I did it. Every day I sent him home early because of his behavior, and every morning I welcomed him back without any questions. That was one of the hardest nice things I've ever done, but I think about that kid every day. I learned more about his family life. It was hell. Absolute hell. So I hope that for a couple hours he felt like someone wanted him around. To which someone commented, you probably did more for him than you'll ever really realize. His showing up early every day is a sure testament to that.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big sign of what's maybe going on at home, or
or
it's either or both a reflection of what their home life is like, and then just how much of an impact them just welcoming them still is having on them, even if it is leading to them having to be sent home early.
Right. Because a lot of kids will push boundaries too to see what they can get away with and stuff. And if they're experiencing that stuff at home, they'll take it out potentially on other people. And in this case, sounds like that was what was happening. Yeah. So, but to have the strength to do and say that every day for a whole summer, that's a lot. That's a super lot. And again, not really expecting anything in return, but also thinking about what impact not letting them come back could have, or not showing that compassion to them could have on their long term. That's wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
So
I just hope that the only counterpoint I could see is if their behavior was preventing other kids from feeling safe or something, so that's that is the tricky balance there.
Right. True.
But that's not me advocating for, oh, you should not have let them come back, because obviously they need it to a certain extent, you know.
Right.
That's just the hard balance there.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was an interesting story. And yeah, and I feel like that could go for a lot of things about when people are not being kind or not behaving well and stuff, and still being strong. That's a sign of strength to still put on that I love you, even though, or I care enough to be kind to you, even though you are not being kind to me. You know, that's a really strong position to take, and it's a very hard position to take. And so kudos to this person for continuing to be strong despite not being met with anything back, and in fact being met with the opposite of kind. So yeah,
listen, going back to the last episode, if you listened to that one, kindness revolution revolution of kindness.
Yes. And this next story kind of goes along with that. So this one is from the same thread. Again, I get onto a thread, I'm like, this fits really well with the topic. Here we go.
Well, it's a gift that keeps on giving.
Yes. This one says, I work as a meat clerk at a major natural foods chain. Every week, there's an old man that comes into my store. His name is Sid. Sid is a picky old man that forgets things. He often calls me George. My name is Robert.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Sure.
He gives the clerks a hard time asking for special things and being an overall curmudgeon. No one wants to help him. But I was nice to him one day, and ever since that day, he comes in asking if George is around. One day, while I was helping him, he told me that he had lost his wife several years back and that he forgets things and that it's generally lousy being old. No secret there, but he is lonely and I felt bad for him. I often give him special service that takes a great deal of time. It can be a pain in the butt sometimes, and my coworkers sometimes give me guff for it. This past week, I was helping Sid when he asked me to take his hand. He firmly grabbed it, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "Thank you for being my friend." I started to well up and thanked him for being my friend, telling him that he was a nice man. It's not too much that I'm doing something incredibly nice for Sid, or even that it's the nicest thing I've ever done. It's simple stuff. It sounds cheesy, but the impact of simple actions can make a huge difference to some people. I honestly had no idea that what I was doing was so important to him.
Yeah, I feel like it's just a reflection further of sometimes the bar is just so low. Just treat someone with kindness and as a decent human being.
Yeah.
And that speaks so loud volumes to people and such an impact, especially I imagine if you're someone who's struggling with, you know, memory and stuff like that. I imagine there's people out there who get really frustrated by it and like, or don't take it well that they keep being called the wrong name every time, you know,
Right.
but this person did, you know.
Yeah.
Good old Robert was always really patient and never like acted annoyed by it sounds like. And
Right. And by just being kind, this guy was like, I have a friend. Like, that's, I don't know, that really hit me in the feels because it's like, does this guy have anybody? You know, you don't know. Some people don't have a social circle. This going out to get meat from this meat grocer might be the only interaction they have. And so you made it a positive experience to go and see somebody at this meat chain rather than just going in and be met with people that are annoyed that you're there because you're an annoying customer. So the fact that he views him as a friend just because he was kind to him coming in, that's, again, it really hit me in the feels.
It's also like the things that he was doing were never like really bad. Like
No.
we've both worked in customer service and stuff. We've both had those mixture of customers that were great and some that were just like, oh no, like is there a way I can hide behind the counter or something when they come in because they're just, it's like they want to make your life difficult intentionally.
Right.
But then there's people who are like, you know, just like, you know, have memory issues or like a little forgetful, and that's fine. Like it's, maybe you might laugh a little bit like to yourself later, you know, like just kind of, but like it's not like harming you in any way. It's not.
Yeah. I mean, it did say that he was being curmudgeon-y.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. But
and making them do things that they don't usually do. But again, like,
it's not malicious though.
It's not malicious. And you think about, again, it could be their only interaction.
Yeah.
And is it really more important to express that, it's annoying to me? Or is it more important to treat them like a human being? That could be your grandpa. How would you treat your grandpa if he came in and he was kind of curmudgeon-y? Would you be like, here's your meat? Or would you be like, hey, grandpa, here? You know what I mean? Like, you kind of view it in a different lens if you're going to take that stance to be again, being strong in the face of maybe curmudgeon-y
Yeah.
or not being polite enough to actually call you by your correct name. Like, yeah, it can feel a little disrespectful when you're being called by the wrong name, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can speak from
You used to be
experience.
from a manager. We're called Adrian
Yeah.
rather than Adriana, and they knew your name was Adriana, but
And
for
I
some
worked
reason
with
they
them
kept
for
calling you
years.
Adrian.
It's like, what? So, like, yeah, it can be really disrespectful for sure. But also, like, I guess, yeah, it takes a strength to still be kind in the face of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes you got to call them on it. There comes a point, and I'm not saying you got to stomach being, having customers be rude to you. Like, 100% not. And sometimes they might even respect you if you be like, hey, I know you keep calling me George. My name's Robert. Like, if you do it in a way that's not rude and not angry, you can sometimes gain some respect, Like, I wish I had done that more and been like, hey, my name is Adriana. Not Adrian. I probably should have done that more than I did.
Mm-hmm.
Because there is a certain level of respect that most people that we should all be owed. Like, it's just basic. But at the same time, again, you can do it in a kind way, and you can do it in a way that still is not, making them feel like they're a nuisance or a terrible person. So, anyways, yeah, moving on to our next story here. This one is kind of funny. So this one is from the same subreddit, same thread, and it says, once in a while, I put on a frog-looking beanie and I go around Seattle as the Toad Sage. As the Toad Sage, I pass out sandwiches to the homeless.
There's the addition of the article of the Toad Sage. Not just Toad Sage, the Toad Sage.
And other things I can provide. Hopefully after the first, I'll be able to afford the blankets I have designed and will be able to go and pass those out. I have a friend help me, and we've fed over 100 people so far. But when it comes to telling people why I'm busy over the weekend, I usually just say I'm playing video games / working on cars / etc. It's because I feel that showing off what you do doesn't make the world a better place. A man's character is not made up by what everyone knows he does, but by what he does when no one is looking.
Yeah, I really hope that's something though that he tells somebody or writes it down somewhere like inaccessible, so that say when he reaches the end of their life that can be included in a eulogy, because that'd be
Toad
a
Sage.
bomb eulogy of the
I
Toad
agree.
Sage.
I think it's cool. I like it. It's almost like Batman, but it's the Toad Sage.
So they're not beating people in the streets.
They're going and they're giving out sandwiches and blankets. That's super, super cool. I just think it's fun that they made it into this character almost. Like, I'm almost like a Robin Hood type, like I'm the Toad Sage. I go around on my weekends and I hand out sandwiches and blankets. I just think that's super cool. It makes it fun in that sense. That's like the secret that they keep, that I'm a do-gooder, but it's just really cool. But they're also helping a ton of people.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, doing it for the right reasons, and it's a really cool secret. And like you said, I hope someone finds out through the grapevine, so that like eventually one day they can be like, I know that you're the Toad Sage.
Or I think honestly, best case scenario would be like it just comes out that no one finds out about it until it's time for like their eulogy and stuff, and then they like learn like he did what?
What did he do?
Like, that was them? They were the Toad Sage?
Yeah, it's super, super cool. So yeah, going on to our news article for today. The news article comes from npr.org, and it is titled, Grandpas Got Together to Help Kids. Scientists say it boosts the elders' health too. So,
Okay.
a man that is in his late 70s, his name is Jim Eisenberg. He was pretty outgoing, and when he first became a grandfather, he wanted to meet other men at the same stage of life to do stuff together. He went online trying to find an organization of grandpas, and he said, there are a ton of things for grandmas, but really none for grandfathers, which is funny because we literally just had a story on here about grandmas that sit on benches talking to people.
Yeah, a couple episodes ago.
Funny that this comes up. He's like, there's a lot of them for grandmas, but there's not for grandpas. So
I think the grandpas have developed a reputation and wanted to sit on their couch and watch TV
so that's
or
what
something.
this is all about. Yeah.
That's
Or golf.
the reputation. Or golf.
Yep.
And then they're going to tell you can't golf anymore or something. So you guys just watch golf.
Right, exactly.
It's an unfair reputation that has been...
So that's the thing that a lot actually have dealt with, is feeling like they lose their purpose and that they're just stuck watching TV. And so a lot of them came together to create a group called Grandpas United. And this group started in 2018. Eisenberg and then his friend Frank Williams started it. And so they bring retired men together to socialize and come together to have a common purpose of volunteering in the community. Quote, a lot of guys don't play golf, Williams says. What do? You can give back, you can serve. And then someone said, so many children are growing up without a male figure or a father, and here we have men who are retiring from work and careers. They have skills. So currently they have 60 volunteer grandpas in their area that are doing this, and they work with young boys and men. They go to schools and stuff to do this. One of their initiatives, this is really cool, is called Jumpstart for Dads, which helps new young fathers to adjust to parenthood and learn from the grandpas of their own experiences of being dads. So that's really, really cool. But like I said, they also go to schools. They show up at a Church Street Elementary School, and they spend the lunch hour with groups of fourth grade boys playing games like Connect Four and building block towers and playing catch and hacky sack. To quote a grandpa who volunteers with them, John Stewart, he says, one of the things we've pushed is getting them used to interacting with people who are adults. That's a really important thing, I think, because a lot of times kids are, very good at socializing with people their age, but aren't so used to with, older adults having to communicate and stuff. And that's kind of something that carries on when you get into high school and stuff and you start applying for jobs and stuff. It's really good to be able to socialize and know how to do a handshake when you're doing a job interview and stuff like that, knowing those social norms and stuff once you get out of being in your age group all the time,
I'm not gonna lie, at first I thought it was the reverse, where they were teaching the grandpas how to interact with the younger generation, teach them
I'm sure that's
I'm gonna teach you sleigh
I'm
and
sure that's a benefit.
sigma and all the brain rot quotes and stuff. I'm gonna educate you on.
I'm sure that happens too. So going off
funny.
of that though, the grandpas do benefit, which is super cool. So apparently someone named Dr. Linda Fried, I'm not really sure how you pronounce it, but she's currently the dean of Columbia University's Mailman School of Public Health. And she started a group kind of like this as well. She noticed a reoccurring pattern in her practice as a geriatrician, I think it's called.
Geriatrician? I don't know.
Geriatrician. She started having patient after patient for whom the reasons they were truly sick were that they had no reason to get up in the morning. And so that's helped her to start her own group, which is the Experience Corps, where volunteers from their early 60s to their mid 80s put in 15 hours a week at elementary schools for at least a year. And so they're trying to help the kids, but also trying to help the older people's health. So to quote the article, she lists 4 things she says are essential for older people's health: their physical activity, their connection with others, their cognitive activity in ways that exercise and strengthen memory and thinking, and finally, the need to feel like you matter on this planet. She said that this group is now run by AARP, but they have helped a lot of kindergarten through 3rd graders in different cities around the U.S. And to quote her, men who were volunteers demonstrated over a 2-year period an astounding increase in the size of their brain. So
They're becoming too powerful.
Growth occurred in the regions associated with problem solving and memory. Why? Fried says it may be that because older men socialize less than women to begin with, the consistent volunteer work and seeing that they were making a difference did them the most good. So yeah. And then one last quote from this article. There's a lot of other stuff. It's a pretty long article. There's a lot of interesting little facts and things and stuff, and testimonies of different people that are a part of it and stuff. So
as usual, the link will be included if you want to read it in its
full. If you want to see a little bit more. But one of their members named Mark Scharf, he was part of this Grandpas United. He says, one of the things that I love about Grandpas, it's not only with the kids, it's the camaraderie and building new friendships. He says, referring to his fellow grandpas. There are people I never knew before. We've developed relationships, and I cherish that. Good for our people all around. Good for the grandpas that are involved. Good for the men that are becoming dads that are having good advice from them. Good for the kids that are having social interactions with adults that can learn how to do a handshake properly or how to socialize well and be able to maintain eye contact and all those good skills to have as they keep getting older. So, yeah.
Which admittedly are getting a little harder nowadays, especially as we're still seeing the impacts of coming out of that COVID era, remote learning era, and
right.
Zoom became so heavily relied on and stuff that I'm just tagging that on
interaction.
that's a new element that we have to deal with, like this next generation that has to overcome that period of time and that's continuing, you know. It sounds simple, but times have changed.
But it's hard. So yeah, it's really, really cool building those connections and also building connections in the community too, just in general, which is always good. Because like we've mentioned before, like, you know, as you get older, you can become a little more disconnected from your community and stuff. So this is an opportunity to kind of build that community back up as well. So yeah, a really, really cool program. And with that, we will end today's podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you'll tune in next week. Next week's episode is all about paying attention to others. So yeah, a lot of little sweet stories lined up for that. If you have any positive news articles or any stories of times in your life that you've had a kindness done for you that seemed like it was done with no looking for anything in return, please feel free to send them to us. We'd love to share those. So you can send them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com, or we also have a subreddit, which is Uplift Positive Stories, and you can type it anonymously on there. So.
And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button or leave a comment. Leave us your own story of kindness and maybe become part of this kindness revolution.
The kindness revolution.
It's gonna be a thing.
Thanks for
I'm
joining.
determined now.
Yes. Have a great rest of your week.
And stay positive.